One of the things that I love is that two films idea of your life. And there's like two stories you can tell. One that is safe and full of regret, and one that is risky and full of pride and joy.
Good morning, everybody. Grooms Unicorns. First of all, before I start, I'd like to ask you a question. And the question I'd like to ask you is, would you put your hand up if you are a lawyer?
I wouldn't.
I'll join you so you don't feel lonely. I used to be a lawyer, but I'm all right now. Would you put your hand up if you've used a lawyer before? Would you keep your hand up? Put them back up again if you've used a lawyer. Would you keep your hand up if you like lawyers? That's ever so kind of you. I guess me being a rebel is a bit of a cheat because actually lawyers are not really that rebellious. But in the world I come from, I probably am as maverick as you can get because I'm asking some questions about the way that law is actually practiced. So I want to say something really, really bold to you. Law is broken. Not the law itself, actually. That gets fixed and people will move it forward. But the way that law is practiced is broken. It doesn't suit clients, and if you think about the experiences you've had with lawyers yourselves, and please don't shout, it probably wasn't perhaps what you wanted it to be. But the interesting thing is that the practice of law is broken for the lawyers too, and what it needs is for someone to stand up and actually say that. So I am. The practice of law is broken. It's old. It's outdated. The way in which you buy legal services is old and outdated. It doesn't work for clients and it doesn't work for lawyers. So something has to change. And the question is, what is that change? How can we improve the way that one of the oldest professions, not the oldest profession, but the way that one of the oldest professions like medicine and the law, how do you change a profession? And of course, for me, the answer to that question is painfully slowly. For me, the change is just not fast enough. Let me set up a kind of juxtaposition, because there's a lot of juxtapositions that go on here, I think. And one of them, first of all, is a really funny one, which is getting a lawyer to come and speak at a thing like this. I mean, how much more a fish out of water could a lawyer be than talking to a room full of people who have great ideas about things? So there's a juxtaposition. Let me juxtapose an old law firm, a traditional law firm, with what a law firm could be. And I want to do that as I wander my way through this story. And in fact, you're really going to have to bear with me, because on Sunday afternoon, the slides I'd spent the best part of 2 months overthinking and overanalyzing, I decided to delete and start again, because what I was going to do was present you something called Itch, which was an explanation of how ideas get into action. And what that would have been, actually, is me hiding from something really important. And the really important thing, and I think the challenge for me today, is to tell my story and to tell our story. So the law's broken, right? So what we need to do is think about how to fix it. So we went into a lab and we had a really good think about it, and we did some experiments, and you'll notice there's a fairly old stuffy looking dude in what could be a pinstripe suit. And he's probably talking or looking at an overly posh looking scientist, and that probably is a lot of what's about the law. People in pinstripes, people who are overly posh, maybe people who are even a bit patronizing. But actually, lawyers are really human, and if you can find ways of making connections with them, you can really work with them, and they can really work with you. So we put together a plan, and I'm going to break all the rules of storytelling that I read about in great detail, because lawyers do lots of preparation for things like this. All the rules of storytelling tell you that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'm going to start with the end. There it is. So we made a law firm. We took the elements of a really great law firm, and we took all the elements that were not present. We did an experiment. We threw them together, and this is what we came up with. And I'll come back to that as we go through the next few minutes. I want to start with an explanation, maybe to myself, of why am I doing this, and how on earth do I find myself standing here? All around us, and we've heard this yesterday, and we're going to hear it a bit more today and tomorrow, I'm sure, there are really inspiring people who do amazing things. Human beings do amazing things. And you just have to look around you to see people doing those amazing things. These people are pioneers. Yeah, they're rebels, a bit like me, but they do really rebellious things. They dare to go where other people don't go. I'm hesitating to not say they boldly go and to use a Star Trek split infinitive on you, but at the end of the day, these people push the boundaries of human experience. And this is, for those that don't know, Ernest Shackleton. Man, brave. This is a brave man. This is a man who goes to the edge of the limits of human experience. And then when it goes wrong, he doesn't quit. He doesn't leave the men on the island. And if you don't know the story, I urge you to read it or see a film about it or something like that. He goes back and he brings them back. How inspiring is it to go to the limits of human experience in the physical sense and to be a pioneer like that? Another one of the people that inspires me, a hero for me, if you like, is Alan Turing. Here is a guy who, let's face it, is pretty odd. He is odd. And I'm not saying all mathematicians are odd, because yesterday we heard Harry, who's very far from odd. He's simply brilliant. And Alan Turing was brilliant. He was bold. He said, I can break the Nazi Enigma codes. Trust me. And he had a really hard time getting people to trust him. And along the way, they lost faith with him, but he believed he could do it, and he went on. I'm sure everybody knows who this is. And I thought, well, I can't show you all obvious heroes because that's not what we're supposed to do here. I should find someone alternative. But that wouldn't be authentic. That wouldn't be me talking to you. That would be a presentation. I don't want to give you a presentation. I want to tell you my story. Martin Luther King, a belief, and everyone will have heard that speech, I'm sure, a belief that the world could and should be different, and that what he needed to do was to stand up and say that. Elon Musk, here is a guy, right? He's revolutionizing things all around us. The obvious one that many of you will know about is the Tesla electric car. But what about the Powerwall? He has invented, or his team have invented, because it's rarely one person working on these things, he has invented a lithium-ion battery that will store electricity generated by solar panels, and it can power not just your car, but your house, your school, your hospital, your city. And if he does that and that follows through, that will be nothing short of a revolution in the way that we live and what happens in our planet. I hope to goodness that Elon Musk is a force for good and he's not actually the next Bond villain in disguise, because once he controls the world's power, we're all in trouble. This is a rather less well-known entrepreneur from the 1960s, and he started a business called Fitz Travel. Not the best of names, and I don't think branding was around that much back in those days. He started a business called Fitz Travel. It basically was a corporate travel company. It delivered travel tickets to people who traveled. And you'll notice the chap who started it, called Bob, has got the latest gadget for the 1960s that he's using, the telephone. Wind your minds back to that era. He had a telephone. He didn't have a fax. He didn't have a telex. He didn't have email. How did he connect and serve his customers? Well, Bob came up with an idea. And his idea was that he would use in London, London's world-famous Chelsea pensioners to deliver travel documents to his clients by hand. So there was a personal service being delivered. There was a disruption of the way that travel documents went. They normally went in the post. And there was little of a personality about that process. The other thing that he did was to go to his best client, his biggest client, who I understand were Bank of America, and he put what he called an implant, which I guess today might have slightly different connotations, but he put an implant into their personnel department so that when the Bank of America executives wanted to travel, they could go downstairs and they could talk to the friendly travel agent who was in the building and get the tickets from them, hand delivered back to them. So he disrupted the travel industry back in the late 60s. And in that sense of being a pioneer, I actually owe Bob more than just the inspiration for what he tells us. I owe him a bit more than that because I owe him my DNA. Bob is my father. And he doesn't know, because I've never told him, ever, just how much he's actually inspired me to do what I'm doing right now, just standing here. Part of standing here is about doing this. This is a scene from my favorite film, 12 Angry Men. If you haven't seen 12 Angry Men, and you can put aside any prejudice you might have about lawyers and films about the law, this is a great film. This is a film about one man who stands up in the jury room after the trial has finished, and the film is all filmed in one room, and he makes the argument against the 11 who disagree with him. Now, I wonder if that's perhaps what I'm trying to do. I think most of the legal profession doesn't want to hear the argument that I want to make with them, but I'm standing here saying that the practice of law is broken and that we have found a way of fixing that to a certain extent, and we intend to continue to be curious about how we can develop that and to move it forward. The good news is, and it is a real spoiler, guess who wins? So watch the film because it's the journey in the film. It's what happens in the room. It's how the characters change. It's the story unfolding that is so powerful, certainly to me. Yesterday, somebody mentioned David and Goliath, and I thought, oh no, I can't talk about David and Goliath. The struggle that I'm having perhaps isn't one of biblical proportions. It might feel like that to me some days, and it really does some days feel like that. But actually, it's much more about recognizing that in order to move forward, sometimes you need to change the rules. You need to do something game-changing. And I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who was focused on the story of David and Goliath. So I'm going to borrow that from him because he did it really well. Why did David win? If David had fought Goliath on Goliath's terms, using Goliath's skills, David would have lost. So in order to innovate and move forward, what I'm suggesting to you is we need to change the rules of the game. So that's what we've been doing at Carbon. We've been changing the rules of the game. I don't want to fight or compete with traditional old-style law firms on their terms because I won't win. We won't win. We have to change the way that we go about doing things. So in 2008, so we're going back away now. Some of you were still in short trousers, I think, back then. In 2008, I got a little group together, and we wrote a plan, and we had some numbers, and we went to Mazars, who are a very well-respected city financial advisory firm, and they helped us to put together a plan to raise £10 million for a brand new start law firm. Who's going to put £10 million into a law firm that's a brand new start, that's got no turnover, got no customers, just got an idea about how law could be practiced? Well, we thought we were onto something, and sure enough, we were right, because Mazars lined up for us 17 presentations with city institutions and investors, those that were interested in the change that could come to law. Does anybody remember what happened on the 15th of September, 2008? Timing. Timing absolutely spectacular from my point of view. The gang had written this great plan. We'd stood up and been brave and bold for what we believed in. We managed to get ourselves together. We got some people interested. I did all 17 meetings that week because, regrettably, nobody cancelled. And I wasn't going to cancel. I still hung on and clung to the idea that maybe if I turned up, one of them wouldn't be quite so devastated. But this happened on Monday the 15th of September 2008. I knew it was happening before I made my first pitch to Fleming Family and Partners, a private equity firm in Mayfair. I was sitting in their reception. My feet were sinking into the ridiculously plush shag pile carpet. I was probably marginally less nervous about seeing them than I am about talking to you. And on the plasma screen next to me, the news starts emerging. And there are people carrying boxes through revolving doors, and the BBC headlines say, "Shock, Lehman's collapses." And then I go into my first pitch. This is my favourite artist, Norman Rockwell. His work, really, I love the way he captures the mood of things in the paintings that he did in the 50s and 60s for the cover of some American magazines. And, slightly relevant to what we're all going through politically at the moment, but they say a picture paints 1,000 words. That's how I felt. Absolutely devastated. Disappointed would be not to do it justice. So what do you do when that happens, when you've galvanized yourself into action? It's sort of contra to everything you know and all your training. You've had a crack at it and it doesn't work. Well, One of the people I met in the 17 sessions that I did, and obviously my presentations were devastatingly brilliant, but I didn't get the 10 million quid. One of the people said, "Not now, Michael. Don't try and do this now. It's a really great idea." And believe it or not, some of them really liked me too. So don't do it now. Do it some other time. Put it on a shelf and come back to it later when we all have a better understanding about what's going to go on. So I did. I went to find a port in a storm. Well, actually, I think the port found me. And someone I used to work with offered me a job on the board of one of Britain's biggest financial services companies. So I went to the port in a storm. I went to take safe harbour and put down an anchor. I'm blessed. I have a wife and 3 kids. And as this was happening, my 3rd child was being born. So the only thing I could do was to go there and be safe. But every day I was in that job with great people, and it was interesting work that we were doing. Every day I was reminded about just how much I'd given up on my own dream. I was reminded about just how much I still thought law was broken. I was working with lawyers who were still delivering legal services to me as a business customer in just the same way, and I still had the same conviction about what I believed. But I was in a rut. I used to get up at 4:45 ridiculously to get a train to commute to the office that was quite a long way away. I used to come home and I'd maybe not get there till 9 o'clock at night, sort of back and forward, and you get in a rut and it's a habit. I was pulled up really short, really short. I don't know if you can see that at the back. This is a piece of paper that was blue tacked to the shower door in our house by my then 6-year-old son, and you see it's pretty crumpled. I carry it in my wallet all the time. At the top it says Jack, and then it says, "Daddy needs more brakes." We'll forgive him for the misspelling of brakes because he's Welsh speaking, and maybe, hey, I think he'd get it right now, he's 14, so. That's like quite powerful, okay? So it stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, you've sold out. You had a dream. You're not doing it. And not only that, but you're not seeing your family. You have no life. You're just going backwards and forwards in the rut, doing what you always did. You're wearing a suit. It just isn't right. So that moment, with Jack's help, I guess, I decided to resign. And I left my very safe harbour on my own, in a very small boat, in very stormy conditions in 2010, to start the law firm with no money. I didn't have my 10 million, and I didn't have any cash either. With no money, wait for it, with no clients. And I had a go at the idea to see if it would work. I can't get away from the fact that I'm a lawyer, and lawyers are evidence-based. So part of my challenge has always been to prove things, perhaps, and take too long over proving them before I'll come and tell anyone about them. And that's part of the challenge of why I'm here today. I'm maybe going earlier than I normally would to tell the rest of you that there's something better. And after I'd thrashed around for a couple of years, and I won't tell you the stories, I will over a beer, of highs and lows, of no clients and some clients, of no income and some income, and all of the things that come with having a go at something and being on your own, after 2 years, I found a partner, as mad as me. His name is Oz. And Oz is a brilliant ex-banker. There are brilliant bankers about, obviously. And Oz left his job as a senior director at Lloyds Bank and came to work with no pay and a request that he invest in the business. And he's been right behind me ever since. So I've switched anchors. I've got another anchor. When you try and have a go at doing something, and I'm going to use the word leader, when you try and lead something, you're not a leader until someone is following. And then that person is as much a leader as you are, particularly in the early stages. So we did some testing. We talked to lots of lawyers about what they wanted a law firm to be. We did all this work in 2013. We imagined, if you like, Uber for lawyers, a different way of working, a way of having a platform and an umbrella, where a lawyer could build a business and be free to work out how they wanted to interact with their client on their own terms and not constrained by the way that the old-style law firm would make them work. Along this journey, we met a brilliant brand guy, Mike Smith, and Mike came up with a way of encapsulating the whole idea of this firm, which is it's about the individual. The relationship between a lawyer and a client is an individual relationship. It's not a relationship between a firm and a client. It's two people who come together to do something. So he came up with a brand, and this is the way you see the brand. Every partner who joins us as a lawyer is able to choose their own type of logo within this library of logos and their own color scheme. So we really celebrate the individuality of the business. And if I think about it now, and I think about the boat on the stormy seas and Jack's note and O's joining and the ups and downs and all the things that we've done, I feel very humble actually to stand here now and show you this. There are 17 partners in our law firm, 12 staff, and a range of outsourced suppliers. We're doing it. We are changing the way legal services is delivered. And I think for me, the most exciting thing, and sorry, I should just tell you that's O's in the middle, handsome devil. Each of these people has come on a journey. They have made a decision to leave something that felt more stable and secure, to come and join an idea. And I wonder if maybe there's a whole different age in front of us where people don't ask you what's in it for me, they ask you what of me is in it. So coming to Carbon is very much an opportunity, the way I see it, because we don't have all the right answers, it's very much an opportunity for these people to give of themselves, to be a part of the creation of something, rather than looking to me to create everything for them. So part of my role now, I think, in accepting that I am the leader of this business, which I have had great difficulty doing, I'm a custodian. I am a custodian of the values of this business and the opportunity it presents, and my job is to maintain the standards of the people that come so that they can all flourish together. Somebody yesterday talked about the conditions to flourish, and in fact, in the early days, we played about with a strapline that was creating the conditions for exceptional lawyers to flourish. And indeed, Jocelyn, who's here, who's responsible for liaison with our lawyers, when she joined as employee 2, she asked what her job description would be. And I said, I don't have one, sorry. I know I'm a lawyer and it's all supposed to be nailed down and written up and all the rest of it. The job description is love the lawyers to death because they pay your wages. They are your client. They're your first client. And if you look after them, they will look after their client, who is our secondary client. And it's very much about the way that you support the lawyers using the platform and the umbrella. There are probably a few guiding principles that I should share with you, and I'm leaving these people on here deliberately because they mean so much to me, and they don't know that, but they will now. I'm leaving these people here while I tell you a little bit about the structure of the business and about how it works. So in simple terms, an old law firm is a partnership, usually. Not exclusively, but usually. And that's a legal structure. That's a way of forming an organization and working together. But actually, if you then think about what partnership means, I suggest to you that they don't work in partnership. They're confined and constrained by the structure of one. In our world, partnership is something very different, and we have a saying that we work in the spirit of partnership, and that spirit is fundamental to Carbon's future. It's about the relationship between people and the spirit that they bring to that relationship when they work together for a shared goal. So all of you people here have either got ideas or you're doing something. We as lawyers, maybe we're not doing something, maybe we're not making something, but we're here to help the makers to make. And actually, if we're thoughtful about it, our story isn't about us and what we do, it's about you and what you do. And lawyers thinking like that is a very different way of working. The spirit of partnership actually is very freeing if you work in a spirit of partnership genuinely, that genuine sense of collaboration. Because when you work like that for a shared goal, your choice and your control over what you do is infinite. So unlike most law firms, we don't confine and constrain lawyers and say, for example, you must work these hours, you must charge this money, there must be this rate. We leave the lawyer to decide with the client what the rate should be and whether they should charge. So doesn't that mean, for example, if you take that freedom to its logical conclusion, that we can really support fast-growing businesses because we've re-engineered the way a law firm works inside in quite a dull technical way that I'm not going to tell you about, but I will do later if you're really interested. But because we've re-engineered it, we can give the choice and control to the lawyer and the client to work out themselves what's the best way of working together and to work out what resources they need to deliver the goal that the client has. A little bit like, I guess, and I don't really understand this in any detail, but just-in-time manufacturing principles. You know, you bring the team together, you do the job, then you don't carry the overhead cost all the time, which is what makes law so very expensive. So I'm sort of challenging people to say, well, why can't the businesses that most need the best lawyers' help afford it? And why can't the law firms find a way of providing it? And it's partly to do with the structure. So this new model that I'm talking about frees both the lawyer and the client to work together. And the most important thing about that freedom is for both the lawyer and the client, it enables this really special thing, which is more for less. So if you're a lawyer in an old law firm, I don't know why they're on my left hand, but they're on my left, maybe because I'm right-handed. On my left hand, if you're a lawyer in an old firm, and you think about what lawyers earn, which is a product of what they charge you as clients, they typically earn about 30% of what they bill you. Well, in our firm, they typically earn 70% of what they bill you. So straight away, you can see that your lawyer in our firm can afford to reduce your fees by 25% while increasing their income by 50%. More for less. And if you're a lawyer and you're lucky enough to become a partner in a big firm, and many of them are sweating towards that kind of direction, if you're lucky enough to get there, they ask you to buy into the equity. They ask you to put money at risk in the firm in order to get more of the share of the income. But what happens if that firm doesn't work out? And many large firms have collapsed. You lose your money, and you may have borrowed that money from the bank. So we don't have that. We don't have lawyers putting money into our business. They put money into their own business, which enables them to decide how they want to work with you. And I guess the final wrapper for me about all of this, and I think this might come from some of the things I've done in the past in financial services, is from the beginning has to be about quality. The quality of the work has to shout. I might even dare to tell you that I think law is a craft. It's not a science. Lawyers craft solutions. They use the tools, the best ones do, and they use them best when they really understand your business. And they really understand your business when they ask you questions. Most lawyers don't spend enough time asking you questions and finding out what motivates you in your business and where you're going. So the quality wrapper for me had to be built from the beginning. So I think it's probably fair to say that we are the only law firm in the UK that has all of the work that it does for its clients subject to independent scrutiny with the files that are going to be checked selected at random by an outside party. So we don't know when the quality control guys come which filing cabinet they're going to open, metaphorically because we don't have filing cabinets, inevitably we use technology. Which filing cabinet will they open, what file will they take, and which page will they look? We don't know. So that means our standards have to be high all the time, not some of the time. And I don't think I'm pretty sure there are no other law firms that are brave enough to do that because they can't. They just can't. So I told you who was the most inspiring person to me. Bob. What my dad has taught me is that if I am bold, if I'm brave, if I really believe in what I'm doing, and if I do the thing he's always been banging on to me about, which is my best, not someone else's best, then I could be the change. And actually, I'm going to ask you to help me with this because I can't be the change on my own in legal services. I told you it was about the relationship between two people, a lawyer and a client. Your clients, be more demanding of your lawyers. Be the change with me. Demand more and better, because then, only then, will the service that you get improve. And I want to finish where I started. This is carbon. We're changing legal services, one client and one lawyer at a time. Thank you.